On the first day of Christmas, Optimus gave to me the War for Cybertron Trilogy.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Predacon Paul, this is your other host, Decepticon Doug. We're doing something a little different for the holidays. As you can see, we've decorated.
As we always do.
Yep.
We're going to be covering, there's a Netflix series that's relatively new, I guess it's a couple years old now. The War for Cybertron Trilogy. We're covering part 1 of that trilogy, which is 6 parts.
Which totals up to 2 hours-ish.
About. So this is Siege. So Cybertron is in a war. We won't even say a war for
Cybertron. Yeah.
Yeah. We start off knee-deep in this conflict. In fact, we're kind of toward the end of it, in that the Autobots are kind of a ragtag group of freedom fighters. They're basically just fighting for scraps of Energon at this point. Like,
This episode even starts with them like, hey, where's the Energon?
I think over there.
Oh, okay, let's go over there, because we need Energon.
Mm-hmm. Bumblebee he's not really one of the Autobots in this. He's doing his own thing. He's a mercenary. He's helping out Wheeljack to find some Energon. Mm-hmm. In doing so, Wheeljack finds a space bridge, and he's like, whoa, if this can get functioning, then we can bridge space. Bumblebee's like, well, you know, if you turn that on, the Decepticons will find us. And Wheeljack's like, no, they won't. And then the Decepticons find them.
And they're like, holy crap, they found us. They're called Seekers.
So they seek and find things a lot. And so within the group of Seekers, we got, the usual bunch: Starscream, Thundercracker, Skywarp, and a bunch of guys who look exactly like them. They probably all have names, but look, I don't know all the deep cuts. Give me a break.
And there's also Skyfire, who's all like, yo.
Skyfire / Jetfire. I think in this one, he's Jetfire. And Jetfire is pretty cool because he's got a lightsaber built in his arm. He just pulls it out and slashes things, including Starscream's arm. We all wish we could do that.
The Starscream's like, I'm going to shoot you because you're an Autobot. And he's like, no, only I may decide. He's like, my hand.
And they're going to be killed and stuff like that, but Megatron comes in. He's like, hey, are you guys going to join my side? And they're like, nah. And then he's like, okay, kill them both.
Number 1, you don't give overtime. Mm-hmm. Number 2, we work 12 to 16-hour days. Mm-hmm. Okay. Number 3, we don't even get vacation time. This is BS. Mm-hmm. And number 4, you smell funny. And then Megatron is like, whoa.
That is it. No one makes fun of my musk. Optimus Prime comes in to save the day, and he just knocks everyone down.
And then he gets his ass kicked.
Yes, he does. And luckily, Lita 1 is there. She snipes Megatron. They go back to the base. They're like, oh my gosh, we did stuff, and it's sad, and there's a war.
And there's a gate there that bridges space. And
Yeah, exactly. Ultra Magnus is like, I just don't know if we can win this war, Prime. I just don't know.
And Optimus Prime is like, you know what? Yes, we can. And he's like, no, Prime, you should have taken his peace offering. And Optimus is like, why? So we can be slaves? And he's like, that's it. You're no longer invited to my birthday party.
Oh!
The Decepticons are having a meeting about how best to defeat the Autobots. Do we defeat them, or do we turn them to our side? And while they're trying to decide all of this, because Megatron has proven that he wants to change their minds through dialogue.
He wants them to surrender and just join him and just work under him.
Which seems like a pretty reasonable thing to do, especially when half the population of the planet is dead or more. And all of a sudden, there's this shadowy figure walking up to the Decepticon base, and we can't tell who it is because he's got a hood on,
and he's very big. Could be anybody.
Could be anyone. Heck, it could be Unicron. We don't know.
It probably is Unicron.
It could be Scorponok.
That's true. Yeah, the old classic Scorponok. He's a big boy.
Hot Rod, for goodness sake.
Or even Rodimus Prime.
No.
I mean, I don't know. Let's not throw it out there. It could be anybody. Anyways, he takes off its hood and it's Ultra Magnus.
Dun, dun, dun. Like, seriously, why did he have the hood? I don't understand. Was that for the audience's benefit, or was that for the...
It makes a good dramatic shot, I think. Yeah, Ultra Magnus, he wants to talk to Megatron. He's like, hey, look, let's just work this out. Let's just work it out.
I heard that you wanted to offer a peace solution where we'll all become your slaves.
And Megatron's like, yes, that's exactly what I want to do. So, in the meantime, go sit in the brig.
Oh.
Then we'll talk about this seriously when you're ready to give me all the information about Optimus Prime.
Although, in Megatron's defense, he did say the best cell. or the finest cell.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Accommodations or whatever.
That's good. That's good. So that's something.
He could have put him with the Rancor, but he didn't.
Oh, that is definitely the worst accommodation.
I know. And then Shockwave is like, yo, I got an idea. Allspark plus us equals profit. And Megatron's like, yeah, Allspark. You're right, Allspark. And then Ultra Magnus is like, Prime, Allspark. And then Prime is like, Allspark.
Allspark?
Oh.
Guess what? Ultra Magnus has been captured. All the Decepticons want to get this Allspark, and this is bad. Because if he does, he's gonna genocide us and stuff.
And then off they go on an adventure to find the Allspark.
They want to take the Allspark off the planet because they think that it's too dangerous to leave here with Megatron. So in order to do that, they need to get the space bridge up and running. They need to get enough energon to get their ship up and running.
So they can take the ship through the space bridge. Hypothetical Allspark that they may or may not exist because it's been missing for 10,000 years. Did I miss anything? If they remove it, then it kills the planet. And then Megatron's essentially General Zod. I will find him!
It's basically a bunch of... They got to go on some fetch quests to get the Allspark, Energon, and get the space bridge up and running. And within that, there is some turmoil with Jetfire kind of being like, I don't know if I like genocide. Yeah, that kind of gives the gist of what it's about. So, Predacon Paul, what worked for you?
Okay, well, number one, the animation. Hats off. It's almost as good as Beast Wars.
This close to being as good.
Just missed the mark, though. But in all seriousness, though, wonderful detail. And, like, the environment looked really nice. It doesn't look as pristine like Beast Machines. Cybertron clearly has been through a war. And it was really cool getting a chance to see Cybertron in the way that I'd always imagined it for some reason. Even through Beast Wars, I always imagined that because of all the wars and stuff, that you'd still have areas of Cybertron. Like, some places are nice, but other places not so much. If you've ever been to, like, a European country where there's been, like civil wars and stuff, I was in Hungary in 2016, and there's buildings there amidst all of this modern development. There's old buildings from, like, ages past that still have bullet holes and blast holes that they, on the inside, just put drywall up, and then it all looks, on the inside looks all nice. But, like, the scars from the Civil War, when I think Hungary or Budapest was, like, fighting for independence from the Russian Federation or whatever, or the USSR. I don't know my history. I apologize if I'm getting this wrong. But you can see, like, the battle scars from all that. And I always just imagined that's what Cybertron would be like.
Yeah.
Your nice areas, but your areas where things are really, like, messed up still. It's very beautiful there. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, but it's got scars.
Yeah, I really like that about the environment there. Although everything was battle scarred.
Yeah, I like it as well. The characters, Megatron especially, has, like, wounds all over him.
The two gashes and a hole in his chest.
It all shows kind of a level of history and in this conflict. Some of them have just minor scuffs. Some of them you can see burn mark and some severe damage or stuff that's been patched up. Like, it's actually a lot of attention to detail in the visual element.
And like we were discussing earlier, the Bumblebee being kind of pristine comparatively, you can tell that he hasn't really, like, chosen a side.
He's been avoiding the fights. Yeah.
And that's kind of cool.
I like the characterization of Bumblebee in that this is a very unusual take on him. Usually, like, he's like, yes, Prime, I'm right here, I'm with you all the way. He doesn't really want to be part of this war. He doesn't want to commit to anything.
He's a maverick renegade.
But he does kind of transform, so to speak, through the episode.
We never see him transform, not once.
We don't. You're right. He doesn't transform literally. He transforms spiritually.
There you go.
And yeah, so that's kind of interesting because, I think, Bumblebee usually being, like, the very kid-friendly character, the one that, like, little kids gravitate toward, basically since the very beginning of Transformers, this more hard-edged sort of, like, I'm just going to do what's best for me take on him it's different. Yeah.
I kind of liked it.
Yeah. It worked for me. There's a few different characterizations that I'm a little more mixed on. For example, Ultra Magnus. I really like Ultra Magnus as a character typically. I think I liked the idea of him in this, but I feel like we just didn't really get to see him be his full self. Like, episode 1, he surrenders, and then he's just a captive. We don't really get to see him fight. We don't really get to see, like, the soldier aspect of him. Actually, yeah, the more I think about it, the more I feel that is a really wasted character. Because, yeah, he gets killed off in a very unflattering fashion. You killed off Ultra Magnus in essentially what's Act 1 of this series. That's just kind of a...
And he gets executed when he's chained up. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I still want to talk about the things that I liked. We discussed this at length with regards to Beast Wars and also with Beast Machines, with like the motivations of Megatron. And I know that they're different characters. Mm-hmm. But I like that in this, they have this lower class versus the elites kind of a take on it. Mm-hmm. A little heavy-handed in the dialogue, where it's like, well, we're working in the mines of Moria.
Yeah,
and
there's
you're
a lot
up
of
there in your ivory tower, and it's like, I get it. You were oppressed.
There was a lot of exposition.
But I do understand the limitations of like a 20-minute time slot, and you have to get all that information in. I always pictured him as well as like this, I'm gonna do evil because evil is good, or because evil is like evil better than good.
I'm going to be evil because good is dumb.
Exactly. Nothing is more evil than that.
Yeah.
Most Saturday morning cartoon bad guys, even the Megatron that we know and love, is very like, I went to Dr. Evil medical school. But in this one, he implores Optimus to just give up, right? This isn't what we fought for in the beginning, and the conflict has taken its toll on Megatron psychologically, and maybe there was always that ambitious wannabe leader that was underneath, but ultimately he wanted to liberate his people. His methods could use a little bit of work though, because you can't just blast your own people.
Unless they really have it coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, this idea that Decepticons or Predacons are deceptive and evil by nature, and they can't be trusted, and they're distrustful as well, and that makes for like a very difficult social structure or command structure. They're always trying to shoot each other in the back, whereas with the Maximals and the Autobots, there's a sense of trust and ownership and accountability and responsibility that comes with it, and then they have to implicitly trust their leader. War for Cybertron Siege really plays with that expectation, because you have Decepticons who were fighting for the cause and who their hands are soaked in blood, but ultimately it's not the war that they wanted to fight, and the war is almost over, and they're still being cruel, and they're not a fan of the methods anymore, and they have a change of spark, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it's nice that there's a blurred line between, you know, what makes a good guy and what makes a bad guy. Mm-hmm. There's a whole spectrum, as it were.
Jetfire, once he turns, he's kind of like, I'm on your side. Go ahead and plant a bomb in my mind. It just seemed a little too sudden. Yeah. But I get what they were going with.
I actually think that was done a little bit better with the other guy. I can't remember what his name was.
I really liked him.
Where he was fixed up by Ratchet. His story was even more believable in that he still wasn't going to really help the Autobots. He was going to help this cause.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty good arc for him.
I like that once again, he has to articulate it all at once, but it was a good speech about, I did this for the cause, I didn't do this for Decepticons, I'm not doing this for Autobots.
He said, I made a vow for myself.
Yeah.
So he's just holding himself responsible for his beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Which was a sense of personal accountability that you never really see with the Decepticons, but because they're always so black and white, but nicely done in this one, I think. And that to me was probably the most interesting part of the show, but that's just because I'm old.
Here's one thing that I'll say that I think is probably important to know, is that this is a tough sell for people not really experienced in any Transformers. Like, for example, the characters that I remember the names of are basically the characters that I already knew from the G1 series. And there's some additional characters, and I'm just like, so like I was talking about that Decepticon who trades sides. I don't remember his name because they barely say the names of the characters, and the characters aren't like super unique.
Demolisher?
And I think one of the issues is just so many characters. And you know, the ones that get the most screen time are usually the ones that people know pretty well already. But it does make it so it's not exactly the easiest show to just kind of walk into with no experience with Transformers. Yeah.
I feel like the Transforming 2 was kind of either underutilized or not utilized properly.
Yeah, there's definitely. We never saw Bumblebee transform. I don't know if we ever saw Wheeljack transform.
It didn't seem like they would run when it made sense. It would make more sense to. Like they're trying to hide and quiet, we gotta get across this bridge and get all the way way down there, but we need to do it without alerting the patrols. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna run. Ka-dunk, 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 ka-dunk. There's like 6 of them. Meanwhile, they can just like...
Yeah.
They'd be across the bridge so fast.
They'd be faster, they'd be quieter. And I do have to say that although generally I like the animation and the character designs, but sometimes they just had this these big bulky chunks attached to them that just kind of made their designs kind of awkward. And as such, they moved a little bit awkwardly. So it's like, because there's the huge things they have to kind of move around.
Kind of like, what's his name? Starfire.
Jetfire.
Where he's got that big thing that appears to be a piece that obviously swivels.
Yeah.
And it's like just on his back.
They just wanted to I guess, make sure that all of the parts that were in their vehicle forms were visible, I guess.
That makes sense.
But sometimes it's like a huge backpack that
but it's
is a bit of a burden on them.
I saw that on Optimus as well. Like he always had this big backpack looking thing on him.
Yeah.
And I just kind of accepted it while watching. But it's the very opposite side of the spectrum for the issue that I have with Beast Machines, where they just seem to liquid morph into whatever.
Yes.
This is the polar opposite problem where they transform, but you look kind of...
It's almost like too loyal now to what the toys might look like.
Yeah.
I guess it's a balance, it's a delicate balance. Obviously it was a creative choice and they went with it and they committed to it. And for the most part it wasn't a problem. But I just saw it sometimes when they're just they're having to really move and they're just burdened by all these huge chunks on them. Mm-hmm. It's a visual nitpick. It's not a deal breaker, not something that I hate. I just have to criticize it a bit.
If we're talking about their transformed and their bodies and stuff, what bugs me is their weapons. Now, I might just be spoiled, and I'm going to compare everything to Beast Wars, okay?
That's the baseline.
But Dinobot has his eye lasers. Optimus has those blasters on his wrists, and he's got those interceptors. Megatron has the mouth beam that is also a missile thing, and it's a part of them. Whereas in this, they're just sort of here's a pistol, okay.
Well, actually, this is something, and I don't know if this was a consideration they made for this particular series, and they didn't have to go this way, but this is something that I've heard in the sort of the G1, and I guess into Beast Wars, that kind of community, is one thing you notice with characters in the movie with Hot Rod, who's got these built-in lasers, is that he's younger. He was built in a time of war. So he came with weapons built in.
Okay.
Where the characters from the original series, they were built outside of a time of war, so they don't have as many built-in weapons. They come with guns.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And since the Beast Wars characters, generation even after, they just come built standard with weapons.
That makes sense.
So that is something I could use to say is it was sort of an excuse.
Okay.
So.
But since we're on the topic of weapons, we talked about this while we were watching it. Alita 1, okay. She's got that giant rifle that she's
yes.
standing there holding. Everyone's got these shorter, I guess submachine gun type. Mm-hmm. Some of them are pistols. And then they get into the battle, episode 2 or 3 or something, and she's running. She's and it's no different than all the other weapons. It's why do you have all of this gun if it's not going to do something different? It
looks like something that should really pack a punch, like Chewbacca's crossbow weapon, yeah. It doesn't even necessarily matter the size. It's what you do with it. It's good to be consistent with what that weapon is supposed to do. Again, to compare it to Beast Wars, you just kind of know after a while of watching it, what certain characters' weapons are capable of. Mm-hmm. Because they're unique to them. And you know the sound that they make. We didn't have a whole 26 episodes like Beast Wars did to kind of establish all these things in its first season. But it was essentially every gun was the same. There was a lack of individual personality. And I think...
Yes. Thank you.
That also kind of translates a lot to the characterization, I'd say, in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
150%. That is a symptom of the guns all be sort of just having this generic pew pew is a symptom of this problem. We had this conversation while we were watching it, where sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between the different characters, even when they talk. I'm not taking anything away from the voice actors in the show. They're obviously very talented people, and they're good at their craft, but there's always something unique about, listen to Gary Chalk, and when he talks. That's something that he was born with. He's just got that voice that just commands, and at the same time, he's worked on it to the point where it's a strong tool that he can use in his craft. When you hear him talk as Optimus Primal, you're just okay, that guy's in charge. And he's got this sense of wisdom and also it's weird, but like a paternal nature to it where he cares and you can tell, and there's a patience. Dinobot, conversely, is very like lizard sounding, and there's a strong character there, and that's, I mean, hats off to Scott McNeil. Rat Trap is and he's like rodent-y and stuff, and like,
so I mean, the Beast Wars characters did have the benefit of having animals to kind of as sort of like something you could draw from.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's a little more difficult when it's just miscellaneous sci-fi vehicle. But at the same time, you know, we're gonna have to talk about the voice acting. So let's get into it.
I could not tell the difference between Megatron, Optimus, and the Guardian. One was just louder.
Basically, I didn't want to mention it because I wanted to kind of get your first your true opinion rather than sort of being tainted by any insider information I had. But basically, one of the cost cutting measures of this show was that they decided to go with non-union voice actors, and so that excluded any possibility of more established voice actors coming into these roles. And unfortunately, I think in general the show suffers from it. Individually, like there's certain characters where I don't really have a lot of notes. I think they did really well, but
Alita one, phenomenal.
Yeah,
she drove it home. I think hers was the home run performance for me for the entire show.
Yeah, I also liked Starscream a lot.
Starscream was great.
I also liked Wheeljack. I thought was pretty good. Unfortunately, like there's a lot of characters who they don't even get enough lines to really get a great sense of the characters anyway. It's partially that they're less experienced voice actors, but what you needed in that case was a more experienced voice director to get the best out of these actors and to guide them into having individual characters that are very distinct from one another. And that's something we didn't get.
I think they tried to overcompensate with, maybe it was a directorial choice, or maybe it was them like, there's something not quite meshing here, and they used that gravelly voice filter, and they just filtered everyone's voice through this gravelly robotic voice filter, which then made everyone sound even more similar.
Well, the thing is, like the original G1 cartoon, they have effects on the voices, but
they sound echoey and tinny.
Yeah,
right?
but they still, like, you could still tell so many of the characters apart. Like everyone still had their individual voices.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like you can't really blame the effects.
No, and if I were to make a comparison for something that was really jarring for me when I was a kid growing up, Dragon Ball Z. Now, we've had this conversation before. Ocean Studios, when they had Dragon Ball, they knocked it out of the park.
Even though that's the Vancouver branch, right?
Vancouver branch, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, let me tell you, Ian James Corlett as Goku. And also we've talked about it in great length. Richard Newman as
Captain Ginyu.
And
Scott McNeil as Vegeta?
No, Scott McNeil as Piccolo.
That's right. That's right. He sounds like Dinobot.
Brian Drummond.
No one can do the power-up scream like he can. And then you've got the funny dub before the actors had a lot more time with the characters, and not taking away from them at all. They're all wonderful, fantastic people, very talented, but there was something definitely lacking in the character, where they were playing a character, an idea of a character. Because of how jarring it would be for them to just change voice actors mid-season for already established characters, they decided, okay, well, we're going to try to mimic these performances as best we can, as opposed to bringing something uniquely themselves. That's not their fault.
It's just circumstances.
Yeah. But the difference in experience between Group A and Group B was astonishingly jarring. Like, it was just like it hit you like a slippery fish, and you're like, oh, that's kind of how I felt here. Optimus Prime is Optimus Prime. He's not a brute in the sense that he can throw down. He can get in there and he can slug it out with the best of them. Just not in the show.
Well, he does well. He just can't fight Megatron.
Yeah, but he's just like Guardians, and I was just like you're losing all credibility as a leader when you're lashing out like that.
Yeah.
Which was, I don't know if that was his choice or if that was the director's choice.
I mean, some of it's in the script, some of it's got to be directing, and also some of it is personal performance choice. So it's just a combination of things, I think. I
lost the confident leader, and I got more of a brute lashing out.
It's so hard as well, like when you're inexperienced and you're given like an iconic character, you're just like, you're cast as Optimus Prime, you're following in the shadow of like Peter Cullen, who is a legend in the industry, and same with the Megatron guy. Like, I mean, I think his character was stronger and the performance was a bit stronger, but you're still like you're following up Frank Welker, who's like one of the best voice actors in the world. Like, period. It's just so much to ask of you, and I almost feel like it's too much to ask of actors on that are kind of just beginning.
Here's not a show, but an entire franchise, an entire property.
Yeah.
Good luck.
They've recast these characters before. It's not the first. It's not like it's only ever been Frank Welker and Peter Cullen. But, like, those are still the voices that are in people's heads. They have been recast to varying degrees of success. Even very experienced voice actors can have trouble filling in the shoes to characters that have such a history and iconography. In my voiceover classes, like, it's a process and it can be exhausting, but, like, when you get pushed to a place and you finally find it, like, it feels good. Like, it's very rewarding, and it's I don't know, I just feel like it's worth the journey, and I just would hate it if, for budgetary reasons, they had to just, like, rush stuff. Because at the end of the day, it's almost like what James Rolfe says about video games. Well, I mean, I know this isn't the case anymore because you can get DLC patches and all that stuff, but like how it used to be is if you rushed it and released a bad game, that game was always going to be bad. Mm-hmm. If you took more time and the game was late, it was late, but it would forever be good. Sometimes it's just worth maybe a little extra budget or a little more time, or just finding ways to not cut corners to make the product the best you can.
If they were cutting corners with not going with union voice actors, they may have cut corners with some of the directing too. And without a good director, then you're obviously going to get a product that isn't as to the level that it could have been. So
yeah. Do you feel like you're invested, like you want to see where the story's going?
I'm interested to see where it's going.
Yeah.
A couple of things kind of irked me. The sea rust or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
They drove through it, and then they just needed to deploy flares. And then once they got through the lightning, then there was the tornadoes that were dancing around each other. Mm-hmm. And then one of the bots got picked up for some reason, but nobody else did. And then Jetfire was like, I'm going to save you. And then he did. Then he's like, oh, you can pull the bomb out now. He's like, no, you save it for the mission.
You never know when you're going to need to blow my head off.
And then they're like, yeah, but we got to get through this thing. He's like, there's a way. And then like they cut to the battle at the Ark, and then they cut back and they're through the thing. And it's like, what? But when in the, okay, all right, I wanted to see how you got through the thing. And then that's it. The rust sea is gone. And all of a sudden it's right friggin' there. So, oh, there it is. But there's the zombies. It's like, come on. You rushed it.
As far as the fetch quests go, that one was the most important, and they skimmed through it because they were...
You're telling me for 10,000 years no one could find it? It was right there?
Yeah, I don't know.
They've got satellites. They've got orbiting ships. They've got planes. For 9,900 years, you're telling me you couldn't find that?
A little more struggle in the right places would have been good. I think in general, you felt the weight of the conflict, but yeah, I feel like that particular...
And then the one bot gets torn apart by the zombies, and you're just like,
oh, that lady.
Oh, we really liked her.
Yeah, we just got to know her.
She didn't even bring a gun. Why?
Don't bring your fists into a zombie fight.
And they just pulled her apart like she was nothing. It was like, dong, dong,
We're going to give War for Cybertron Siege 3 out of 5 strange Elita 1 crotch shots. Why did they go with the crotch shot there?
Especially when she's like, I'm staying, and this is like really tense moment, but we're looking at her crotch.
That's a directorial choice that I'm afraid I just can't understand. But
she got them thighs though. The battles seemed kind of messy. There's just a lot of shooting and not really a whole lot happening. The fetch quests and everything just seems sort of disjointed. It's just a lot was happening, and it was happening really, really fast.
Points for ambition, but definitely you had a lot on your plate, and some of it you handled really well. Some of it not as much.
But it looked phenomenal.
It was definitely a very mature, very intense take on the Transformers
Especially
series.
the crotch shot.
Especially with the crotch shot. What did you think of the War for Cybertron Siege? Let us know in the comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned for even more War for Cybertron reviews this fabulous holiday season.
Jingle bells, Megatron smells, Optimus laid tonight.
Yeah. Starscream flew into the building and Jetfire ran away.
Hey!
Okay.
The new album's coming out soon.